with this 1978 cover version by pop singer Deng Lijun or Teresa Deng.
That's how we heard these songs at the beginning. Later, we heard the first version. So for me, like Deng Lijun always seems to be the original singer for this tune.
Zhang Le, a jazz singer from Shanghai, grew up with Ye Lai Xiang as a poppy love serenade in the 1980s. The original that once filled the dance halls of Shanghai's jazz age had virtually disappeared from mainland China's music scene during the early decades of communist rule. At that time, these songs were considered
Yellow music.
Yellow music, yeah, it's sort of a term for pornographic music.
Yeah.
music that's part of an often forgotten history that Dave Liang and Zhang Le hope to revive in their new cover album of Shanghai jazz standards. It features yet another take on that serenade to an evening primrose, with lyrics that may be not just about a flower, but about the people and the places where this music once blossomed.
There's a lyric, 我为你
Kind of stay over here and
Yeah, I'll
and
pull over
it's
here
about,
too.
I'm concerned for
Get the
your
stuff
future,
out.
I guess.
I'm not going to get
Which is
all
weird
of
if
it.
you're
You
talking
need to
about-
carry
Well,
the
you can
three.
just get it
If
out
you're
and
talking
set it
about a singer
set it
in
on the
nightclub,
sidewalk or something.
Especially at that time when a lot of people likened nightclubs almost like 2 steps away from brothels. You can understand where that sentiment comes in.
Jazz was an American import that once thrived in Shanghai beginning in the 1920s, a legacy of the international city's colonial history.
I think there's this somewhat dark side to it, but there was a beautiful fusion that came about as the result of combining Chinese lyricism and Chinese singers with this American jazz.
I got you kettle chips.
Okay, thank you.
There was one thing the music lacked.
In the old versions, I always felt the singers didn't swing as much, and I grew up listening to Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday. So I think we wanted to really feature some scatting because it was just sort of unheard of, scatting in Chinese songs.
One of the album's last tracks harkens back to the song's history in 1940s Shanghai dance halls. Before a heavy beat transports the dancehall sound to a modern-day club, and they sound like a party. But Zhang Le says listen closely to the lyrics, and you hear the singer warning that flowers will blossom forever.
You're analyzing the lyrics and you realize, oh, it's like telling, just don't think about the future. Just don't talk about that. Just enjoy now.
Signs of unstable times that Zhang says still resonate in today's time.
There's nothing guaranteed, mentally you're very pressured in a way.
And that feeling is bound across cultures, says Dave Liang of the Shanghai Restoration Project.
Somebody doesn't need to understand